Thank you very much. A few words of introduction. My name is Jarek. I'm the Apache Airflow PMC member and committer. I'm also member of the Apache Software Foundation and member of the Apache Software Foundation Security Committee. And today Michael Windsor is not with us, but we are doing this project together, so I always mention him when I'm talking about that. Michael Windsor from Alpha Omega. He's also Eclipse Foundation Security Strategy Ambassador, and it shows how collaboration between different foundations and organizations in the space can help with the security. That's what I'm going to talk about today. Few words of intro. What is a supply chain risk? We probably also the picture like this shows. This is on pretty much every security-related talk with security supply chain. Airflow, Apache Airflow on my shirt, and they're up there. Just depends on so many different dependencies. The supply chain risk model has several aspects. Vulnerabilities, tampering, and availability. This is something that pretty much everyone talks about, like what are the vulnerabilities in the software, how tampering with the build system works, what is the availability of the software when it's really removed from a packaging system, for example. But not many people are talking about the culture, process, and solutions, like how we are dealing with all that. And this talk is mostly about like what's our approach to bring the culture, process, and solutions into the whole ecosystem to make the supply chain risk much smaller. This is just a very short overview of SALSA threat model. If you are into security, you know that. This has all the different steps on like building, source, packaging, releasing the software. But what I'm going to talk about today is just the D part, which is the at the very bottom, dependencies. Why now? We've heard a number of talks today about the CRA, about different kinds of problems and issues, backdoors that we all saw. And we know how security is important. And this is what we are, where we are currently at. And the problem with security is that it is hard when you include the dependencies in, because you have so many different dependencies, and your software is only as secure as any of your dependencies. When you are installing your software in your environment or building it, you have all the dependencies installed, and every single of them can introduce new vulnerabilities. So it doesn't really matter if your particular software you're installing, in our case, Apache Airflow, if it's secure or not, if it has 719 dependencies like Airflow has, any of those can introduce the vulnerabilities. So now we, as the maintainers of open source software, we probably need to do something about that. So there is a discussion about SBOMs, producing the bill of materials, and about the size of the problem, which is like huge, because there is no way a consumer of Airflow in this case can check and verify all 700 dependencies, whether they are secure or not. No matter how hard you try, how much automation you put in, you cannot really know it from like a consumer point of view. So we have to help our users to determine that, and we have to look at our security as well as maintainers of an open source software. And together with Michael, we came with the 3Fs framework, which means that when you look at your dependencies, you can do three things with your dependency. When you see there is a security problem with one of those, one is fix. Maybe you can submit a patch. Maybe you can work with them so that they fix the problem. When you have a unresponsive team and responsive dependency of yours, you can fork. You can create your own fork of the dependency that you're using, which is pretty much problematic because then you have to maintain it. You have to keep the future security fixes, etc., etc. And there is the third F, forgo, which there is another explanation of the third F. I will not tell it. But you can just remove and start using different dependencies. So those are 3 Fs that we can use with our dependencies. That's where we started with. And there is one more F that we should talk about, which is funding, and that's where Alpha Omega comes into place. So Apache Software Foundation is a volunteer-driven organization. We don't get money for developing the software. Like, surprisingly as it is, Apache Software Foundation does not develop software. It releases software that volunteers contribute to the foundation. That's how it works legally. So we cannot get funded for, like foundation cannot get funded to develop the software. But somehow, the whole thing, developing, maintaining the software has to be somehow funded. And Apache Alpha Omega, which is the fund that Michael is one of the leaders of, is funding maintainers who are working on open source software and a number of initiatives. The idea, and this is like me telling the Michael's speech, so I'm not as good as him in this. Alpha Omega is there with the mission to protect society with contributing to open source security. They have different things to work on, and I will not go into details of that, but they are, for example, paying for Python Software Foundation security, software security security developer in residence, Michael Larsson. Probably you know the name if you are into security. So they are paying for the staffing for the Python Software Foundation. They are working on improving the security, scanning, and different security features of package repositories. They are paying for audits and remediation, so they are working with important projects to do the audits on the software and on the code and on the processes those projects run. And there is like 4th thing that they're working on, innovation experiments. What we do together is definitely this part. It's like experiment on how we can improve the security of the supply chain. And Airflow is good because we have like 700 dependencies, so that's a lot of work, and we can see how we can do that. They have like 13 full-time engineers, the Alpha Omega. They've done 9 security audits. They have 8 million in grants and funded 14 organizations, including the Apache Software Foundation. They are working with the foundation to staff tooling engineers. How it all started? So we met at the PyCon where Michael Larsson, the Python security developer in residence, they presented what they are doing with security. We met there. We discussed problem of Pacific garbage patch. That's how it started. Like not close to security, but you have all this garbage in the ocean. How do you clean it? If you look at this from the point of view of like how do we get rid and make security working for everything out there, this is kind of overwhelming task completely. But we thought like actually what happens is like I invited Michael to speak on the Airflow Summit, which I co-organize every year. And he said, I will only speak at your summit when we do a project that we will fund with you. I said, that's a good idea, let's do it. That's how it all started. Actually, we did speak at the Airflow Summit afterwards about this project in the keynote. So we came with the idea of beach cleaning, that every project out there has its own beach, which like means the dependencies they are using, they can clean their own part of the beach. You don't have to clean everything. You just have to help with cleaning the part that you are directly dependent on. This is doable. Like Pacific garbage patch, not really. But your own beach, why not? Yes, you can just do it, go and clean the garbage. So, how does it translate to Airflow? Airflow is a huge project. It's the biggest project in terms of number of contributors in Apache Software Foundation. We have 3,200 contributors. That's a lot. And if you can see at some numbers, this is like we are preparing for Airflow 3 release. So like 200. This is like just a 1-week stat. 200 active pull requests, 92 active issues, 160 merge pull requests in a week. Like that's divide by 7, well, 5, 7, no, we work full time and all over the week. 61 authors, 159 commits. You can even see my picture there. So you can see the two most active people there is the bot and myself. The first one is the bot, and I wrote the bot, so it's me all over. 15,000 users just on the GitHub, which is like we have a lot more. And 3,229 contributors. That's stats from the last week when I refreshed the presentation. A lot of people. This is a history of Airflow. And you see, like, so that there were some events that happened on the timeline from 2015 to 2024. There is an interesting thing that, so the upper graph is the just number of vulnerabilities across the time all over that were detected and fixed in Airflow. So it's like, it starts from big numbers because that's historical number. And you can see that like it was like just going very, very, very steadily, just going down. We were fixing the vulnerabilities. The previous talk was about the GitHub private reporting. We have our own process for a long time because Apache Software Foundation requires that. And that process was very similar. So we were just going this way. But something happened at this time. And because suddenly the number of vulnerabilities that we handle dropped quite dramatically. And why? Because we had a number of security improvements, funded, by the way, by the Sovereign Tech Fund. So the people from Sovereign Tech Fund are here. Yes, thank you. And they funded me and 3 other maintainers to improve the security of Airflow. We have dedicated security team. We created a documented, detailed process. We introduced the security model describing our users what they should expect. We have canned responses to issues to our reporter so that we can communicate better with them. We disabled some inherently insecure features, hardened our CI workflows. We even detected a very interesting cache poisoning potential in our CI. And a year later, Ultralytics came and they had exactly this problem, like the one that we prevented because of Sovereign Tech Fund funding our efforts on hardening our CI workflows. We also introduced reproducible builds and provenance so that we can know that our packages are produced from our source code. And that's about Airflow. We have now a security team, which is pretty active, 15 people more or less, 5 are kind of active. 62 committers, 32 PMC members, more than 3,000 common contributors. But the important part is that we are big enough to attract funding. Like the Alpha Omega funding came to Airflow because, yes, we are big. We have big stakeholders, Google, Amazon, Microsoft. They are all having Airflow as a service. So they are willing to invest money, and Alpha Omega is willing to invest money into Airflow, but we have 700 dependencies. Do they have the same attention? No. So we have the stakeholder, we have the Sovereign Tech Fund, as I mentioned. Now we have Alpha Omega Fund. But this is a super basic, not full. It's like part of our dependency tree. 579 is the number of lines, just the beginning and end of the dependency tree. We have lots and lots of dependencies, and they don't get that attention as we get. And we have security regulations. We've heard about that, CRA, PLD. We have less than 2 years to be prepared. And as we've heard and we discussed at the previous talks, everyone is impacted. So if Airflow is used commercially and released commercially, if somebody releases another piece of software that we are using that is used commercially, they are impacted, no matter what. You will not escape. I mean, you can if you're a hobbyist, but somehow you will be impacted. So we need to involve those people. We need to make them aware that the CRA is coming. We need to make them aware that security is important. And more importantly, we need to help them. So our supply chain is vast, as I mentioned. And we thought like, okay, we have people who, just have the S-bombs analyzed. There is like Black Duck, whatever, different things, and provide you all the numbers. You have this huge list of problems and huge list of issues. What do you do with it? I mean, how do you make it so that the open source community can deal with like you can deal with it, but more importantly, the community itself can deal with it? We needed to come up with some much better and more open source ways how to do it. So we think that like doing stuff together is better than alone. So we figured we just have to do something together. How do we do it? We have Apache Software Foundation, we have Airflow PMC, Python Software Foundation, Michael Larson is involved, Alpha Omega Fund. And we started, okay, what we can do with this cleaning your own garbage patch in the open source way. So the goal is we want to review and talk to every single of our 700 dependencies eventually. Not necessarily directly, but we want to make sure that all our dependencies have sound processes. They know how to handle security issues. They know how to respond. They are hardened CCI workflows. All the stuff that we have, because we are only as secure as they are. So we decided we will lead that and learn and adapt. We have 3 years, but we have to start now, so we started. We need to leverage automation to scale, which means that, you know, like with 700 dependencies, you are not able to review that all at once. We have to look at our dependencies from the perspective of my project. Like Airflow looks at their dependencies. But we figured out also that in open source community, people are the most important thing, the most important asset, and they are the most important in the process. So how it started? It started very simple. I wrote a Python script and used some tooling to get like list of all our dependencies with people who I can contact, with versions which we are using. This is all gathered from SBOM. That's the first time I hear, like, first time I know the SBOM is actually useful for something. I actually used SBOM and it worked. We produced SBOM thanks to Sovereign Fund, but now we are using it. So we used like open PSF scorecards to analyze like which kind of problems the project might have, which they are out there. You can produce the numbers, but I never heard anyone using it either. We do. So we have some details, we analyze that, we filter, and from that we derive the actions that we can do to help those dependencies to fix their problems. So we have a list of actions that we came up with. And our observation when we started is like all the automation, all the tooling, all the reporting of the issues to those projects, if you do it in the way, like this is a security vulnerability report which one of our partners, Open Refactory, we work with, they sent this is an issue, this is a security issue you have in your project, in one of our dependencies. They didn't react. Next day, a few days later, when they didn't react, I came in as a maintainer of Airflow and hello here, I'm the maintainer of Airflow, we really need you to take a look at that. The response is, hi, I'm not 100% sure. It looked like this report was automated and we didn't look at it. We just ignore all the automated reports. But now when you came to us as a human, as someone who is a maintainer that we can verify, we respond to it and we fix it. And they did. Yeah. So that showed us that the human connection is really the important part, not just reporting and sending the issues. Yeah, fixed on master. Yes, that was like 3 days later. So they started the experiment. We have 16 projects to start with, so we selected initially for 16 projects. And like we talked to them, I talked literally to all of them, to proposing them to do some fixes, adding security policies, following up on unsecure workflows they have, proposed trusted publishing, follow up on unpatched vulnerabilities they have, proposing mandatory code reviews. This was all funding from the Alpha Omega Fund. They are paying for my time doing that as a maintainer of Airflow. But the thing is, we didn't only talk to them, but we told them, we will help you fix it. We will do pull requests. We will make sure that we will fix, we will teach you how to do it. We will help you to learn why security is important. And the response was amazing because, well, some of them didn't respond. I will still have to follow up with that. I'm doing that, like part-time, so it's not like full-time job. Some responses go away. CRA is bad. I don't care. But there were just a few. And most of them happy to get help. Great to get your help. I'm really looking forward to it. Another response on the discussion I had, I'm also a security freak. I love what you're doing. Can I help? that was the best. And there was also Chroniter. I don't know if you've heard the story. So Chroniter guy, he was looking at my earlier messages on Python discussions about CRA. And when I came to him, he said, I'm closing my repository. I'm removing all the stuff from PyPI. I don't want to deal with CRA crap. Go away. And he threatened everyone that he will remove the package from the PyPI, which means that he will break all the releases of Airflow and all the others. Which is very interesting because eventually he transferred that to another company because we offered help. Like maybe you can donate it to foundation, maybe you can do something else if you are so afraid. And eventually he finally donated that to another company that will keep that forward. Yeah, so that was like what happened as a result of my check. Disclaimer, abandoned, don't use. Like this is the disclaimer he put in on it. It's very interesting actually to learn that people think this way. And the idea is like, we will have more and more automation and coverage of all the dependencies we use. We will do some targets audits for bigger projects that we find out that they need help there. So far, it doesn't seem like they need a lot of help or money to pay for anything. They need really someone to talk to them and tell them how important it is and discuss with them and open a PR so that they can really understand that this is important. This is what they need, most of them. Like, I haven't heard anyone pay me to fix my security, pay me so I fix the security issues. No. Most of them were, oh, I'm so alone here and somebody is actually reaching out to me to help me. That doesn't happen. Yeah, like with the security, really, you want to help. Oh, geez. So we want to turn it into regular incremental process. But also we want to spread the methodology. So we don't want to really go to all 700 dependencies of ours, but we want to teach them how they can go to their dependencies, because that's the only way to scale. Because they have their own dependencies. Most of those dependencies are not ours directly. They are kind of transitive. If we just get a few of them to go to their dependencies and doing the same thing, and we can help them with tooling and showing how to do that, there is a chance that we can actually reach to all our tree, more or less. That's the goal. And maybe eventually we will make it as a part of standard tooling that Python Software Foundation and other places can use in their packaging tools. So what you can do, you can think about security and start similar efforts. If you think you have a dependency as an open source maintainer or foundation or group of people who are running open source projects, you can just start looking at your direct dependencies and talk to them about the security, because that's the start. What happens next might be different. So we can influence your maintainers to help. You can say, okay, even like if you're a commercial company that funds some software, say, oh, you can pay for development and say, yeah, I would like to pay you to take a look and review those dependencies and help them. Because, you know, like, we cannot reach to them directly, but you, as a maintainer of your project, you can actually get paid for going there and asking your dependencies to how you can help. We are bringing security-minded people together. So we are together with Michael. We are building a group of people who are security maintainers from all the different kind of ecosystems, and we'll have regular meetings and discussions and helping, like looking how we can spread this information across the open source community. So one thing I want everyone to remember from that talk, that your project security depends strictly on engagement with your supply chain, because you're only as secure as your dependencies are. That's it. And the takeaway, supply chain is a human problem, and you should look at maybe limit your dependencies or just focus on those that are really sustainable. And our learning is also that, like, whether you have 100 or 50 dependencies now, it doesn't really matter long term. Long term is like how sustained the process of maintaining the security in your dependencies are. And in every project plan you do, in every investment you do, just make a security first-class priority, because sooner or later CRA is coming after you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your talk. Do we have any question from the audience?
Thank you for the talk. Really interesting. Quick question: do you think in the coming years, with the CRA coming into force in 2 years from now, we will see maybe an overflow of projects coming to foundations, to help them, harden their security?
I think so. Yes, like one of the things that I believe might happen is that, like this in case of the chronitor, for when the person who was shutting down basically the project, he said, I have my family, I have my own obligations, I cannot deal with all that crap right now, I have to close it, because it was not like a bad will, like I just cannot deal with that. And one of the ways of dealing with that is just, okay, pass it to the foundation that will take care of that. But was that the question or not?
Yes, that was a question. But aren't you afraid that maybe sometimes the foundation will have to deal with more and more abandonware? What we, like, okay, give it, but
no.
You have no community, nobody to maintain. Because, as you said, the Apache Foundation, just like the Eclipse Foundation, are not tailored to. They are not producing code. This is a community producing code.
Yes. No. That's the third F. Those projects will go away. Those projects which are heading to be abandonware will not be used by anyone because they will be afraid of the security. That will be my guess. Like this kind of auditing and understanding which projects are maintained or not, that will have to happen. You will have to have this knowledge spread out later. There are some ways, there are some things that are happening that, like SBOMs, VEXs, and everything. If you will have a lot of projects that are not secure inherently, neither our foundation nor your foundation nor anyone else will want to take them. I would say everyone will just stop using them and will switch to something else or develop or fork them or whatever. Yeah, so I'm not afraid of that. Like, this chronitor thing is just a good example. It's like, okay, if we have someone who wants to take care of that and the community around that, if we can build the community and interest around that, and we do, because in the issue where there's an issue, like the whole issue discussion, like I abandoned this project. There were like 5 people say, we want to help, we want to, take it over and move, like take care about the maintenance of that. So the community is there. We just need to maybe bring it to the foundation and say, okay, this is the community that we start with, like PMC members in Apache Software Foundation, and then we bring the project in. That's not going to be abandonware if that happens. So, but yeah, absolutely no. Like taking the abandonware, no. That's not something we want to do.
Thank you for that talk. It was really insightful. I wonder if you had any thoughts about open source projects which have like a plugin ecosystem. So they're not necessarily dependencies, but the people using our software will often use other plugins from other providers. And although it's not our responsibility necessarily to make sure that they're doing things right, what should we be doing to make sure that we kind of set expectations or have something within our marketplace that makes sure there's minimum standards? Is there anything out there in that situation? So it's not dependencies, but it's a similar kind of setup.
Yes. That's a very good point. Like Airflow has like 90 providers, open source providers, like plugins, more or less, to talk to different services. But there are plenty of community developed providers which are following the same approach and extend Airflow functionality. So in our case, we just make it very, very clear that those by naming. By the way, I'm working on PEP in Python packaging to make sure that the naming of our packages is owned by Apache Software Foundation. There is a PEP for that, open. I'm co-author of that, because this is a way how you signal this is a package that is owned by the Apache Software Foundation. It starts with Apache something, and then there is a PEP in progress to make it to make it possible, so that we can reserve those names. So that's one of the ways how you can signal that this is your community, your Apache, in case of foundation, this is Apache Software Foundation provider. Others might use other names, and name is one of the things that you can signal, that it's not yours, that it's someone else who maybe have different standards. But in our case, what we also do, we only release our software through our official ways of releasing, And we have a special dedicated like community page where like all the third-party things are listed, but we very clearly have a disclaimer. This is not an Apache Software Foundation software. This is like our community, like broader community. Go and check yourself what's the status of that, what's the security, etc. You have to do that. And also in like most packaging system, there is coming a provenance system, like PyPI, for example. There is an implementation of how to attach attestations to the software you release. So you will be able to even automatically check if this is a software which is signed and released by the Apache Software Foundation or not. So it's both like the human, like the name of the package, for example, but also the security attestations that you can attach in machine-readable way that you will be able to see that this is a different kind of ecosystem. But I do agree, like we have to have a very clear communication. This is ours, this is not ours. This is something external. So just making it very, very clear is important.
Thank you so much again, Jarek.
Thank you.